There's so much news to cover in this video. I am currently providing coverage of the exciting and highly anticipated game that is taking place between the national teams of the United States of America and Ukraine, which is happening in Europe. Okay. All right. Zelensky clearly offended Trump. Does Trump perhaps want to consider whether to continue to support Ukraine at this time? He was faced with one such choice. If you continue to support Ukraine, Ukraine will continue to fight. You don't support Ukraine, Ukraine will lose. Surrender to Russia, or accept any conditions. This would jeopardize Europe's security. Trump wasn't too considerate. But has the United States increasingly become bad in the eyes of the international community? Whether people in the United States accept Russia's complete victory. Here's the problem. White House officials said, now he is ambiguous. Before making sure that Zelensky undoubtedly made a sincere effort for peace talks in Russia. Pause timeout. It's a pause. Indeed, a moratorium has been tried on Israel. You have to be sincere in your talk. It wasn't deliberately difficult. This way it can be restored, so that you can keep fighting. White House officials noted in a statement, the president has made it clear. He's not focused on anything right now. It's peace. The first is peace. We need our partners to commit themselves to achieving this goal. You don't want to continue the war at this particular moment. The attitude you show. Willing to compromise in order to ultimately achieve a lasting and harmonious peace with Russia. It is reported by Bloomberg, the U.S. government is indeed committed to suspending military aid currently in Ukraine. All suspended. Airplanes and ships are being delivered. Waiting in the Polish transit area. All suspended. Freeze immediately. Trump had specifically ordered Defense Secretary Halts to enforce the moratorium. He didn't say how it would recover. It is also not said after the restoration, whether the dynamics are the same as before. There are a few points that you need to understand. More than $3 billion to $4 billion more have been provided. It was passed by the Congress before. Biden dialed it out. And previously allocated funds that were. Something that cannot be delivered. Whether or not to deliver the goods. As for the new appropriations, he has made it clear that he will not write checks. There will be no new aid from the United States. But it indeed promised it in the past. It's being sent. Undelivered. Will deliveries continue? Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in March, the U.S. actually provided $120 billion. This includes $67.3 billion in military aid, mostly weapons. If the United States cuts off substantial aid now, Ukraine will soon not be able to get new additional supplies. Critical advanced weapons systems. Air defense system. Patriot missiles are expensive. Surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, which are designed for targeting specific locations, are crucial in modern warfare. This is the farthest weapon that Ukraine has attacked. Highly advanced navigation systems and ammunition for long-range rocket artillery HIMARS. This was stated by current and former Western officials. If there is no new U.S. military assistance, if not supplied, the weapons available in Ukraine, it can be supported at the current rate until the middle of this year. I'll explain more about that later. That's indeed what Zelensky had to think about that day. Without American aid, how long can his weapons last? Trump's notably controversial decision to suspend aid to Ukraine. Divide within the Republican Party. New York State Republican congressman said, "Stop supporting Ukraine is to endanger the whole of Europe and the free world. Let Europe be in danger. And Europe is dangerous. The United States will not be able to survive on its own. There is no flank of Europe. The United States confronts Russia in a diplomatic standoff. War in Europe, undoubtedly, of course. Better than fighting a war in the Atlantic. Isn't it? Republican lawmakers in Illinois strongly support Trump and his policies. Trump was right to stop sending American weapons to Ukraine, because Zelensky wants to continue the war. Retired Marine Colonel. He says he now works at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a Washington think tank. Ukraine will not surrender tomorrow or next week. they will gradually lose their military capabilities. In the end, I will answer this. Strategic expert Kaufman analyzed. With the arrival of summer, Ukraine's arms supply challenges are even more pronounced. Although the European allies can meet the needs of part of the Ukrainian artillery shells, a lot of gunpowder from artillery shells can be supplied by Europe. You know that Europe did not, as expected, increase the productivity of shells. But hopefully, it should work now. They bought these shells back in different places and collected them. Include, you can't guess, in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, etc. As long as you have money, you can buy weapons back. However, advanced weapons are not easy to come by. But European countries, because the United States once supplied these weapons to European countries. European countries have ordered weapons from the United States. Where did the weapons end up? European countries, such as France, can reimburse it. On March 3rd, Trump said on social media on his account, Washington stands in position on Zelensky and the Russian ceasefire. Won't endure it for long. It stopped. It's March 3rd. Won't endure it for long. What can you do? What can you do? The most damaging of all was the suspension on March 4th. Won't endure it for long. Don't bow your head yet. Just stopped it. Is that clear? Clear. Okay, all right, Trump. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said, achieving peace with Russia. There is a distant time. Trump immediately jumped out and scolded. This is the most malicious reply. The United States will not tolerate it anymore. This man does not want peace. As long as he has the support of the United States, there will be no peace. And Europe and Zelensky also said, they indeed could not continue without the United States. This is Trump's thinking process. Why do they say that? I'll explain later. Why? That's not really a big statement indeed. You should show to Russia its vast landscapes and its rich cultural heritage. Without it, the United States can support it, able to intimidate Russia. You say you can't do without the United States. Everyone also knows that the United States will not support it. Russia will not be afraid. Why do they say that? Why do they say that? What are they thinking? I'll answer you later. Trump recently published an article before the attack. He once said, it is still very early for the Russian-Ukrainian war to end. Then said on the X platform, we want to achieve peace as soon as possible. This was stated by U.S. National Security Advisor Waltz. Zelensky's behavior in the Oval Office is like an insult. These people are, without a doubt, all. Now the U.S. government is ridiculous. Guess what? The past week, important than key officials of the state, or an official press spokesperson. How many times he praised his own head of state? In China, it is 3 times. In North Korea, it is approximately 7 times. In Russia, it is 2 times. 133 times in the United States. Everyone said it, as expected, at the end. Thankfully, we have a great president. Trump was able to solve all the problems. Worse than dictatorial countries. Do you think it's ridiculous? Trump said Zelensky should be more grateful, because the United States has always been steadfast in its support for them. Not supported now. Not now. The U.S. National Security Advisor said, we need someone who can deal with us. Finally able to deal with the Russians, and put an end to the leaders of this war. This is to find a puppet. Isn't it? If it is indeed truly acceptable what Russia is doing. It is, as of now, a pro-Russian head of state. The United States does not want Ukraine anymore. What about giving Ukraine to Russia? The highly respected Republican Congressman John Johnson questioned Zelensky's suitability for the presidency of Ukraine. He had to come to his senses. Be grateful. Back to the negotiating table. Otherwise, you have to be replaced. Such hegemony of the United States is revealed. Not before. The United States would not speak like that. This is the case with MEGA, because this is interference in other people's internal affairs. The United States would not speak like that. The United States is particularly sensitive, because it is a hegemonic state. It speaks like this. It's very imperialistic. Zelensky told the British media on March 2nd. It will not be easy to replace him as president of Ukraine. He can step down if Ukraine joins NATO. If they were going to replace me. The current situation, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, because this time in the Oval Office. Confrontation against Trump. His reputation has risen a lot. I have seen the situation inside Ukraine. In the past, Zelensky was very violently attacked by some people, including some people who have a lot of influence on Telegram, or some bloggers. On the contrary, they supported Zelensky. The entire country of Ukraine is resolutely behind Zelensky. It is not enough to hold elections. You don't want me to run. Otherwise, he would have won, European leaders privately urged. Zelensky wants to repair relations with Trump. Zelensky is ready to repair relations with Trump. You can keep him down as much as you want him to do now. Just coax to the United States. I'll explain it to you. Think Zelensky may need to bow to Trump. A simple apology may not be enough to calm the conflict. After a rare heated verbal altercation indeed in the Oval Office between Trump and Zelensky, the top brass of the Ukrainian government was shocked and outraged. The whole of Ukraine is indeed united under Zelensky. The Prime Minister of Ukraine said there was no guaranteed ceasefire. Will lead to the occupation of Europe by Russia. Expressed support for Zelensky. He asked the United States to provide security guarantees. Otherwise, what if it comes again? Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister said, affirming Zelensky's courage. Say that he bravely defended the majesty of our people. He paid with his blood for freedom. Dignity is indeed a very important thing. The dignity of the country. Spiritual immortality is important. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister praised Zelensky. Have the courage and strength to stand up for the right thing. When Zelensky was in the Oval Office, when Vance talks about diplomacy, he indeed has a responsibility to point out how Putin has broken his word. If you don't have any guarantees, Putin will keep his word. How can you trust Putin? He had to get the message across. It was said for the Ukrainian people. Presidential Palace of Ukraine. Direct accusations that the U.S. leadership is blatantly complicit in Russia. They forge new alliances with European countries. Ukrainian government advisors say this is truly and undeniably our worst nightmare. There is no way to imagine an American president talking like that. What shocked me the most? I'd like to ask Trump's fans whether or not to agree with what Trump said. He said he and Putin undoubtedly and truly share weal and woe. When the Democrats were in a witch hunt that day, Putin suffered a lot of humiliation because of him. Say he colluded with Trump, and Putin has survived. Say that Putin sacrificed a lot for him, so he loves Putin. That's pretty much it. Do you agree? Do you agree? Commander of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, a military leader who rarely makes political statements, publicly expressed support for Zelensky. The armed forces are loyal and dedicated with the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian people. Okay. All right. U.S. Vice President Vance has been allegedly accused of being the initiator of the dispute between Trump and Zelensky. He didn't have a part in the meeting. All of a sudden, he said, "Can I say something?" And then he began to insult Biden in a disrespectful manner to pat Trump's ass. Said the president has been pounding his chest. 3 years to do nothing. No peace. Now we have a great president. Actually, that's how he did. Result. Now it's about diplomacy. Began to cause controversy. He recently went on vacation to Vermont. Being demonstrated. Sandwich welcome. Forced to change the itinerary to another location. He ran to ski. The most serious thing is skiing. There are no fences there. He's easily approachable. And once there was a guy who almost hit him while skiing. Most likely an accident. But really hit him. Vance is a traitor. Let's go skiing in Russia. Vance is indeed a disgrace to our country. Zelensky is 10 times more manly than you. Let's go skiing in Russia. Because he's in Florida. It should be Vermont. Didn't have any friends. He has a lot in Russia. He should go there for a vacation. The protest was organized by a civil society group, initiated by the Mad River Valley chapter of the activist group Indivisible, mainly aimed at the Trump administration. But it is also in support of Ukraine. Vance originally went to the picturesque, serene, and tranquil Mad River Valley ski resort in Vermont, a 4-star hotel, because of the protests. I don't know where he ran to, hidden, the Wall Street Journal reported. The incident cemented Vance's role as a defender in the Trump administration. It's undoubtedly quite clear that he's obviously a loyal and obedient dog under Trump's feet. As long as someone says anything about Trump, he throws himself out and bites. The funniest thing is that he went so far as to say that Zelensky helped the Democratic Party in its campaign. It is a Democratic Party. It's nothing more than a factory for the production of hippocampus. But because it's a democratic state, as you may already know, which is often the case in many instances. So a senator accompanied him. And Vance himself is not. He went to Germany for a short business trip. He was 7 days before the election. Publicly support the AfD, such as, and without seeing the German chancellor, go and meet the leader of the alternative party. This is the campaign to explicitly help others. He does this kind of thing himself. Dare to say someone else. That's funny. Trump must have indeed been impressed by Vance's loyalty. Therefore, Rubio sat there and froze. There was no sound. Now Rubio is not good, so he ran out. Attacks Zelensky every day. Hope to win some points. Both of these people want to be princes. The report quoted Washington officials. Trump once said, if at that time it was Pence, the deputy of his first president. Pence certainly wouldn't say that. Yes, okay, all right, since the European countries ran out of resources. Unanimous, unwavering, and consistent support for Zelensky. What did Musk say? Indeed, it's now time to leave NATO and the UN. I can say that. Is Musk possibly an official? Do you think he's an official? He is not an official. Why does he have power? Why does he have power? Whether he gets paid or not is another matter. A man with so much power and influence. And keep saying, don't waste public money. Trump frequently kept running to Mar-a-Lago to play golf. He and his wife were also carried. The woman, not his wife, and baby X walking around there. Is it absolutely really appropriate to make such a very important appeal? Withdrawal from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the United Nations. Is it a government official who can say anything casually? Isn't it? Should the government have a unified voice? Even if it is, it should be said by the spokesperson. I answer you as a detailed response to your question. In fact, indeed, European countries have already made up their minds. They will indeed do whatever it takes to support Ukraine. Now I hear that Europe will very soon and officially issue one. Some say $300 billion. Some say $500 billion in debt. Refinancing. Between $250 billion and $300 billion go to Ukraine. The rest of the money is used to support the military rearmament of various states, providing additional context. Where does the money come from? It was done by issuing bonds. It has increased its debt by $500 billion at a time. $500 billion in debt. How much is it for the EU? The economy of the European Union is about 22 trillion. It is the increase in debt of more than slightly approximately 2% for the EU as a whole. Germany's debt is 60 to 70%. Is much lower than in the United States. France is 80% to 90%. The worst are Portugal, Italy, and those are 120%. Close to the level of the United States. Here it is. Europe feels that its safety is at stake. Why didn't you do it 3 years ago? 3 years ago, they didn't see through the situation. Because they are afraid of Russia using nuclear bombs. So they never sent soldiers in. Because they are afraid of triggering a third world war. At that time, you scolded it for not being brave enough. 3 years of war. Now they have a great deal of confidence. Fast. It is indeed not so easy to see Russia with nuclear bombs. That's the first point. The second point, there is no need to be afraid of Russia at all. It turned out that everyone thought that the fight would be over quickly. It turns out that Russia is exhausted from fighting Ukraine until now. What else are you afraid of? Russia. as long as Europe is determined, resolute, and steadfast in its unwavering commitment. Of course, indeed, you can support Ukraine to continue fighting. 450 million people in Europe. GDP is more than approximately a dozen times that of Russia. There is also a lot of heavy industry in Europe, such as steel and automotive. As long as the people are mobilized, there is really money to motivate. Of course it is enough. With the exception of certain advanced military firearms, even if there are no advanced arms, their armaments will not be worse than those of Russia. There are quite a few F-35s in Europe alone. They do not need to officially participate in any official capacity in land warfare. As long as the plane flies into Ukraine, air supremacy almost immediately and completely fell into the hands of Ukraine. And then indeed the Russian Air Force did not dare to fly closer. It is absolutely not possible to drop remote-controlled gliding bombs to blow up Ukrainian fortresses. The Russian army was defeated. Russia's whole cards have certainly been completely seen through. Europe has the capacity, as long as you are determined. Then came to this place of safety. They have shown that determination. The determination to send troops. The determination to spend a lot of money. This money will be approximately guaranteed by Russia's $300 billion in financial reserves. Otherwise, if the peace is to be made and the money is to be returned to Russia, countries are responsible. It must be the big countries like Germany that are much more responsible. This time they think. This is not to say that the United States wants to completely dominate the peace talks. It's funny. Europe is closer than you. You say it's a European thing. You don't give Europe a voice. Europe spends more money than you do. You also don't let Europe speak. Europe is in charge. In fact, they are ready for the United States to withdraw. But they definitely won't. They even asked Zelensky to apologize in a low voice. Go and sign that mineral agreement, because it's absolutely for the whole world to see. It would be better to let the United States continue to assist. Otherwise, or else, the blame must be placed on the United States. The rupture between Europe and the United States. Europe did not kick out the United States. It is the United States that wants to dismiss its responsibility as the world's policeman. Europe now has this resource. There is this ability to take over this war, because the bottom of Russia has been revealed. Just send a couple of hundred planes into Ukraine and support them with necessary resources. The situation on the battlefield was immediately reversed. And the whole of Europe produces arms. It must be more than your Russian arms. Although there is no more powerful weapon in the United States, but enough to win against Russia. But be sure to hold the United States. It's just something. If there is any responsibility, a rupture in relations between Europe and the United States,